Ngugi Wa Thiong'o has rested. Rest in peace, legend. You have influenced our lives so much, especially those who are millennials. I'm not very sure about Gen Zs, but I know that his book, The River Between, was such an important landmark in our literature studies back in high school. In those years when I was at the Great High School, Miss Ojuang, the literature guru, and Miss Okello introduced us to this book. And as a tribute, the only thing I want to do is to read part of the most memorable parts of this important book in our lives. The book opens with these lines, and I'll just read them as they are. The two ridges stood side by side. One was Kameno, the other Makoyo. Between them lay a valley known as the Valley of Life. Behind Kameno and Makoyo stretched many other ridges and valleys, scattered without any clear order. They seemed like great sleeping lions, never waking, just resting, held in the deep, eternal sleep of their creator. A river known as the Honia flowed through the Valley of Life. If the slopes of the ridges had not been covered in thick forest and brush, you could have easily seen the river from atop either Kameno or Makoyo. But now, to glimpse it, you had to descend into the valley. Even then, you wouldn't see its full course, only its graceful winding like a sleeping serpent as it snaked its way through the valley. Honia meant to cure, to bring to life. This river never dried up. It was a strong, living thing, surviving harsh droughts and seasonal changes. It flowed steadily and patiently, never rushing or hesitating. The people watched it and found peace and hope. The river Honia was the soul of both Kameno and Makoyo. It brought them together, people, animals, wild beasts, and even the trees were all part of its life-giving stream. But when you entered the valley, the two ridges no longer seemed connected. They turned into silent enemies, still close in space but divided in spirit. They no longer looked like companions in life, but rather like rivals locked in an endless fight for control and leadership of this secluded land. It all began long ago. Those two paragraphs set the stage for a protagonist-antagonist kind of struggle. And by the way, it's when I was a student that I had those two terms for the first time, and they were quite intriguing. Protagonist and antagonist. Yeah, you have Kameno and Makoyo. I can't even remember who was the protagonist, who was the antagonist. But the introduction by those two ladies set a stage for us to have the unraveling of the beauty of storytelling by the gentleman who has just rested today. May his soul rest in peace. Apart from the beginning and the introduction of this book, there is, when I remember our reading and our literature discussions in high school, there is one specific line that I remember too well. And I've gone through the book just to find this one line. I don't know why the line stuck with me like it did, but I just want to read, and then I'll show you, and I'll read a couple of lines before, as well as, you know, show you how, as old as Ngugi was, and as early as in those years, he was able to give us a glimpse of sort of true love between Nyambura and Wayaki. And you can imagine when you're in high school, that must have been a very intriguing love story, and the way he waved it from to capture the mind of a teenager. Oh, he did well there. Actually, the only thing I remember about, or rather the most important thing I remember about this book is the love story of Wayaki and Nyambura. And let me just read part of it just to, to enjoy this love story. He waited for him to make it possible for her to talk to him. Rather, she waited for him to make it possible for her to talk to him, but he always passed on after a quick greeting. A queer man. Sometimes she feared him and thought that he refused to talk to her because she was the daughter of Joshua. That is Nyambura talking. Again, Nyambura glanced over her shoulder in the direction of her home. She wondered whether to stop or to go on. She heard Wayaki's voice. I am going to see Kamau, and I, Johanna. My father has sent me to him to tell him to come to our home tonight. There was a little silence. Then they both laughed. Wayaki's heart beat faster. Then we can walk together, he suggested. They moved on slowly. He was at a loss and did not know what to say. He was thinking of this girl. Muthoni had been the cause of their first meeting. Then Nyambura had been a fairly tall girl with well-formed features. Now he could see the woman in her under the bright moonlight. What are you going to do there? She asked. Wayaki thought, what am I going to do there? It was then that it occurred to him that he did not want to see Kamau. Not now. He too thought of the people and what they would say now if they saw them walking together. Above them, the moon gazed and lit the whole land. Nyambura was not circumcised, but this was not a crime. Something passed between them as two human beings untainted with religion, social conventions or any tradition. Just to see Kamau and the family, Nyambura felt a little angry. She thought, he is going to see Kabonyi to discuss their activities. They came to a place where their ways parted. They stopped there and stood as if held together by something outside themselves. Perhaps it was the magic of the moon that held them both rooted to the spot. That is the line. I don't know why specifically that line stuck with me. Perhaps it was the magic of the moon that held them both rooted to the spot. I don't know what went through my mind when we were reading this book in class, and for some reason, this line really stuck with me. I was really enjoying the love story. Oyaki wanted to dance the magic and ritual of the moon. His heart beat hard, beating out the darkness, and Nyambura stood there looking as if she were the embodiment of serene beauty, symbolized by the flooding moon and the peace around. Suddenly, Oyaki felt as if the burning desire of his heart would be soothed if only he could touch her, just touch her hand or hair. He controlled himself. A strange uneasiness began to creep through him. Are you still teaching? Yes. I have not seen your school. Oyaki, you should come someday. And why not tomorrow in the afternoon, just after school closes? I could take you around. That was a good time. The teachers and the children would have gone. She agreed. They parted without even shaking hands. She left him there, standing, watching her vanishing form. He moved a few paces forward and then abruptly stopped and turned back. He did not feel like seeing anybody else that night. Another punchline. He did not feel like seeing anybody else that night. Oh, thank you, Professor. May you rest in peace. There were quite a number of punchlines that I still remember to this date, and I must say I truly enjoyed this book. I did very well, by the way, in literature, so let me read one last part, and then there are a couple of punchlines here that I would like you to just again listen. He took a step towards Nyambura and stood close to her. He took her right hand in his and once burst out, "Nyambura, I love you." It was really a whisper. Nyambura saw the light in his eyes, and for a second she was afraid. She couldn't believe her ears, but it was good that he loved her. She wanted to fall into his arms, still she feared, and now she felt a painful sorrow come into her heart as if from nowhere. A tear dropped down her left cheek. She did not try to hold it back, and a second fell down the right cheek. Oyaki pressed her hand and she turned the pressure as a sign that he would die. Listen to that. Oyaki pressed her hand and she returned the pressure as a sign that he would die. In a blind moment of passion, he took her into his arms and pressed her close to his breast, while tears from her eyes fell onto his shoulder. Nyambura did not resist, but allowed herself to be held by the one man who could save her from her misery. Neither spoke. They were one. Oyaki thought his quest was over. Then he goes ahead to say the words, "Will you marry me?" he whispered. Nyambura rested on his broad chest. She wanted to say yes. She longed to say this. It would cost her nothing. I still remember that line. It would cost her nothing. Only her breath. Yes. Slowly she came to her senses. She disengaged herself from him. She was no longer crying. Tell me, implored Wayaki, hope and fear mixing together. There was another silence. No, she said at last, faintly. It cost her a lot of effort to whisper this, but she knew she had to. It was impossible to marry him unless she rebelled. She didn't want to rebel like her sister. Wayaki felt hurt. Why? Don't you love me? I do. Her heart said. But can't you see we cannot marry? Can't you? Aloud she said, Father will not allow it. I cannot disobey him. He knows that we have met before, through rumors. He was looking aside now and could not see the tears that flowed freely down her face. If she continued, she would sob. It was better for them to part. But she wanted him, and it was painful to her that she had to leave. Quickly she moved away before it was too late. She left him standing in the way, in the same position, staring at the same place. It pained her all the more, and she stood irresolutely. She knew she had to go. Nyambura, oh, she was gone. What had he wanted to tell her? He retracted his steps and went home, saying nothing, feeling nothing. He just walked. Now, Ngugi had a way of bringing in something unexpected, a twist somewhere. I remember that Wayaki was not a good friend with Kamau. They had their fights, boys' disagreements, and that had not stopped. And what comes right after this is this. Right after Wayaki has been rejected and it's so painful, and he has retracted his steps and is going home, seeing nothing, feeling nothing, just walking. Kamau came out of his hiding place. This was... His eyes and soul burnt with malice. He will suffer for this. And his accumulated fury rose against Wayaki. Kamau had never forgotten that incident when Wayaki had humiliated him in the plains. He would never forget the wound. Kamau knew that he hated Wayaki. Let me stop there because I can't get enough of this book now that I've been reminded about the beauty of our literature lessons, of course, led by those two ladies, phenomenal ladies. And I can only say and read these words as a tribute to the great professor for impacting our lives, writing stories, beautiful stories, stories of love, stories that we could relate to. And he wrote these books long time ago, and we enjoyed each and every word. Punchlines after punchlines. This was crazy. This was a talent. Thank you, Ngugi. May your soul rest in eternal peace.